Good afternoon, this is Untitled Channel on education. We're all unique, no doubt, but are we aware of our uniqueness? Can we put it in words? Because it's not so simple, it's not so easy sometimes. So, can you, in less than a minute and without boring the other person, introduce yourself in a very catchy way and catching the attention of the recipient, of the listener? Let's do a little bit of, let's do this exercise here.
Wow.
So, the uniqueness eventually applied to English teaching or to English teachers translates into knowing or having in mind three very important pillars. So the first one is your client. What problem you're solving to your client, then your approach, how exactly you're doing it, and then knowing very well yourself. So what is that thing that only you and no one else can offer to that person? So we're here today, Wylie, Graeme Bell. We have Anna Kramarenko and Gareth, and we're going to talk about uniqueness. My name is Radmila Gurkova, so let's get started. So obviously the first question is, do you think you are a unique teacher? Yes or no? Quick question.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, I have to say yes, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so that means that you're not an ordinary common teacher. No.
No.
Okay, because, so if we look at the meaning of the word unique, it's a synonym of distinctive, individual, special. You have all these things as in opposition of common, ordinary. All right? Great. Before we start with what is unique about you, can we recap a little bit what is not unique? So these things that English teachers usually say, hey, this is me, but actually they're not unique at all. What can that be?
I guess, I've done some interviews recently, and it's kind of the same stuff that comes up over and over again. Enthusiastic, adaptable, native from time to time, and it's the same stuff. You hear the same stuff a million times.
Yeah.
Exactly the same adjectives.
Yeah.
But
And he's trying to stay away from.
Yeah.
They're all important.
Yeah.
But they all.
But you said something very interesting, very funny thing before with our talk, that you even are able to write them down before they.
Yeah. So I could ask maybe in an interview, or give me 3 adjectives about what makes you unique, and I can literally just write it down before they've said it, because I know what they're going to say, because it's the same stuff over and over again.
So what are the most recurrent ones?
Yeah, adaptable,
Adaptable.
enthusiastic.
Yeah. Patient, I guess.
I love
Patience, the good one. Yeah, I love to see people learn, all this kind of stuff. And like I say, if you could, we would all be able to do it, right?
Yeah.
Write 4 or 5 adjectives before they've said it. Ask what makes you unique, or how would you describe yourself as a teacher, and we'd have them already down.
Even being TEFL certified isn't unique.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Qualified teacher.
Yeah.
So what are these characteristics? I mean, these are probably the bare minimum that is expected from a teacher.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And even they say it, and sometimes they don't believe it. You can see on their face, right? They say I'm adaptable, but they don't believe it. It's just because they kind of it's just the same stuff.
That's what you think you're supposed to say.
Yeah, exactly.
So where does uniqueness begin? Because if this is the bare minimum, what we can say, how we can express that uniqueness, put it into words?
You gotta think about what you like. Oh, sorry, Anna.
I think no, it's okay. I mean, that uniqueness starts when you have already met, or the student has already supposed that you have all these necessary things that the teacher must have, like being qualified, dominating the language, knowing grammar, having education experience. But sometimes, even this way, not all the teachers are having the same quality. So basically here, we can divide it to teachers who are qualified and not. But still, a lot of profiles, they talk about the same things, that I'm qualified and so on. So where uniqueness starts? I guess it starts when you already mentioned your approach. It can never be the same as somebody else, because all of us, we are unique. We can express the same exercise. We can organize the same exercise in 100 different ways, like all of us. But we never talk about our approach. I think this is the one Oxinity also supplies, like the tool that we are using to teach students is already something that is different, right? But here within Oxinity, all of us, we are different. So we need to add like added value for free, I would say, for a price, right? Our backgrounds, our passion included into our way of teaching. I think that here a unique.
Okay.
I agree.
How about you, Gareth?
So, firstly, I think it's all about authenticity, and we were like Rob spoke about these buzzwords of dynamic, interactive, and because they're used so often, they feel fake.
Yeah.
And I believe everyone has something unique to them, and it's just about being authentic and showing that to the students. And of course, some students aren't going to be interested in what makes you a teacher, and that's okay. We've just got to polarize them and show who we are, and because there will be some students we will attract because of our interests, because of our previous work experiences.
Okay, and Graeme, you wanted to say something in this regard as well?
Well, I'm going to say something else. It's like sometimes you got to look at you're working with your uniqueness, your own authenticity. You know, and sometimes it's not working against who you are. Like I really wanted to teach business English, but then I realised that when I walk into a boardroom covered in tattoos in my hands, that they look at me and go, "Who's this heathen who's just walked into the room?" But that could be a strength for me if I work with it and go down a different avenue. You know, it's just identifying who you are, what you're passionate about, and realizing that there's someone out there who's going to want that. So that's how you should sell your uniqueness and not try and be something you're not.
Exactly. But you also said something very interesting about breaking the rules and how this metaphor applies to your classes, because I quite like the metaphor itself, the way that you're using different language to express maybe not so original idea, but in a very original way. So, for instance, your metaphor of break it like grammar, how you would teach grammar.
I say I'm a rule breaker.
Mm-hmm.
So like just for a general thing, I mean, if there's a traditional way of doing something that's been done for a long time, I'm going to challenge it straight away. So for me, if you don't like learning grammar rules, that's great because I don't like teaching them. So it's like that's the way I would sell myself and say like, okay, well, I'm going to do something functional and I'll make it something that's cool that you're going to enjoy and you won't feel like you're learning grammar. You know what I mean? That's just one of my sales pitches. That's like what I put across.
Okay, so let's say, can we find like an alternative on the top of your head for the cliches? So things that people always say. The first one probably, I'm native, I'm qualified. Okay, it has to be there, obviously, but not necessarily in the first place. Or what can we stress about that?
I guess you got to look at yourself, like Graeme said, no, and point out what makes you different. So in your case, you said, yeah, I hate teaching grammar, but we're going to do it, but in a functional way, etc. So yes, it's finding what's different. I guess, well, I was asking you guys before, maybe for myself, it was you said about maybe activity creation, so you can that's something that I enjoy doing and I'm good at doing. So
exactly.
Maybe that's what makes me different. I can point that out to my students.
I think that being native thing is like, I kind of want to step away from that a bit more and actually look at my fault. I don't speak Spanish that well. And I was speaking to Dassi and he said, you speak Spanglish. Well, that's what most of your students speak. So you should use that as your channel. Let's talk Spanglish, but see if we can get it more towards English. And I thought that was quite a cool channel. It's something that we all do. We all speak Spanglish. Let's improve it.
Actually,
I would say, I think something like, are you bored of teaching who always make false promises and at the end of the day you don't learn English? Just go straight away regarding your competition.
Just be blunt.
Yeah.
Straight to the point, no messing.
Are you fed up hearing about the boy holding the apple? Let's talk real English. There's plenty of examples you could use to make fun of other teachers, totally.
Mock
I'm
your
making this example, but what I'm trying to say that we try to mention that we are different from our competitors, right? But not in a very aggressive way. Like, are you tired of false teacher? But things like, unless as a teachers, I'm using a lot of conversation in my classes. I know that everybody tells it, so we can then make an example. I always ask my trainees of marketing just not to talk about the approach, but give direct examples to make it as simple as that, because people want to know what they're going to ask. I think that is the one of the ways we can express our uniqueness. Just give an example of activity we're going to develop with them.
Yeah, actually, it's I very like that, because you're running away from let's say, the focus being on you, and you put it on the student, which is all the phrases that in the first place start with I am, for instance, patient, outgoing, friendly. I adapt to your needs. It's I'll help you. I, and it's not what you would get, no, which is, I think, in the eventually the most important thing. So, for instance, if you want to, let's go to a very practical example. Do you guys use your how do you use your students' interests to pitch yourself? I'll give an example. You know that, for instance, Gareth, we know that you have a very strong football background. We have plenty of students that are passionate about football. How do you use it?
So with my current students or
potential students, yeah. Say me, and well, I'm not passionate about football, so no, I'm not a good example. But someone who is.
Well, I think and when you have a similar interest as, then suddenly that's a connection straight away. So in the past, when I've spoken to potential students, and obviously they've asked for a little bit of information about myself, when I've told them that I coach football, then suddenly and if they obviously like football themselves, then suddenly we have something to bond about, something to connect with. So for me in the past, that's been a great tool to use when speaking.
So that's easy. I mean, when you have someone. Oh, sorry. It's easy when you find a direct connection, but it's not so easy when you're passionate about football and your student is passionate about something different. So how can we meet, or how can we make ends meet? No, how can
meet
we
in the middle?
Meet in the middle.
I mean, I guess there's always
I
something.
think that we can.
Go on.
Say, Anna.
Go for Anna.
Go ahead.
No, go on. Anna.
Go ahead, Rob.
No, you go.
Well, I think that all of us we have a knowledge about something, right? So we're not someone who is going to teach football, who is going to teach science, who is going to teach math, for example, who is going to teach marketing, I guess, to a student. We're going to teach English, right? But do we have at least little knowledge to just throw a phrase and let students know that we do have an idea about what we're talking about? I think that what I'm using, I mean, I'm specialized in marketing, and I'm specialized in what is digital marketing too. But if somebody is a doctor, for example, my dad, he's a doctor, so then I still can, make kind of a relationship talking, oh, my dad is a doctor, so we can talk a lot about medicine, pills, and I don't know, health, right? So we already built a kind of connection. We don't have to be specialized 100% if the student has a different interest than we have, I guess.
And how about being able to transmit that we can create a similar experience as the one that they actually experiment when they practice their favorite, say, sport or activity or hobby. For instance, if my student is passionate about football and I know nothing about football, I can still say that my English classes are the equivalent of him, like the joy and the pleasure that playing football will bring him. I can translate into English. So my English class is the equivalent of playing football. How does that sound? Can we say that? Because our classes are dynamic. Our classes are about the students producing, which is similar to playing, basically.
I think if you support a successful football club, which I don't, nor does Rob, because he's Newcastle United, but we're not used to winning. But I think most people like to win when they like sports. So I think that analogy I saw earlier was, do you want to win in English? Or do you want to compete in English? Or, and turning it into that, kind of trying to make it that sort of
Use their language.
Yeah.
So express what you can bring to them in their language.
English, the game of two halves.
The game of
Something like that.
It's interesting.
I think that we are always using analogies because we want people to understand our mental way, right? A lot of people, they try when I see a lot of profiles. I'm qualified, specialized, I will mandatory show you how to speak in real language. A lot of people, they don't understand this message because it's too complex, right? So that's why we make analogies. Like in my case, for example, if I'm going to do somebody, or if my potential client is somebody who is working with digital marketing, let's say who is a journalist or a media, I would say learning language is going to be as attractive as the ad you create for your clients, for example, and things like that. So then we make an analogy of the way we are going to teach and we are going to motivate them.
Okay, so say that I'm a mom of a kid that has failed their exams in school, and I want you to teach them English, obviously, so that they pass their exam. What do you say? Yes, sure. No, because, or yes, but. What is?
As a sales pitch to them, I think I would just be showing how well I can engage with the kids. So, what do kids want from a class? I'd be thinking about what a kid wants. Kids want to be entertained. I have a completely different persona when I teach a kid than when I teach an adult. So I have to sell that, put that across. So, smiley, zany, whatever it is about your characters. But then look at what kids want to do. Rather than attack the exam, I would attack the learning need of the kid, the engagement of the kid.
Yeah.
Which I hate to say depends on students, but you have to look at the kid. You have to assess that individual. So again, from a general aspect, kids, do you want to play in English?
Okay,
So
so in this case, who would you want to please in the first place, the mom or the kid that has failed?
In the advert.
kid.
The kid.
Definitely the kid.
Okay, so why, Anna?
But
Stand up.
I had all the cases, right, when the mom tells me like, okay, you need to go through grammar and vocabulary because the kid has an exam. All right, thanks a lot for this information. I took it as a reference. What do we have to improve, let's say, because I don't know the kid. But the main, the end client is going to be the end user, is going to be the kid. If the kid likes the class, if the kid is fun, and the kid is entertained during all the class, then if the kid likes teacher, it means that the kid will be motivated then. Then the mom will ask, how did you like the class? Oh, it was awesome. It means that, yeah, we are going to continue with it. That's why I think that, because I can please the mother, challenge that I have qualification, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's not the way we are working here.
Okay.
You probably have to impress both, Aaron. I don't think it's either or. Because at the end of the day, if the kid is going to continue the classes, and like Anna said, the kid has to be motivated, engaged in the lessons too.
I agree with that. Only that sometimes the mom and the kid will have completely different needs. So the mom's need is my kid has to pass the exam, and the kid needs probably is I'm so bored with English that I don't want to study. So you have to.
No, I agree. Sorry.
No. Go. Your turn.
No, I agree. But then I think as teachers, it's our responsibility to explain to the parent what we're doing and how we're doing it, and the reason why we do these type of activities, the reason why we don't do it this way or in that format.
Totally. Yeah.
I agree with that. That's why I do care about pleasing the parent, but it's not my focus, right? So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to explain at the very beginning how I'm going to teach the kid. No matter that the kid failed or not, right? What I'm trying to explain that, the only problem with kids is they are motivated and they are attentive. So that is where we have to start. And if mom does not agree with that, so I'm so sorry, but then there is no way I can teach that kid, right? Because I'm not going to follow the rules of grammar drilling, vocabulary drilling class. That's all about our goal as a teacher. I would not be, I wouldn't please myself just teaching grammar and vocabulary.
Okay, so you wouldn't offer something that you don't believe in.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I agree with that as well. Yeah, that's the whole part of being authentic, isn't it? You've got to stay true to yourself, how you teach, how you see, how you see teaching.
Okay, Rob, do we have any questions?
Yeah, I've got one from Omar. Well, it's mentioning about kind of regional dialect or colloquialisms from your hometown, so how they can play a part in the learning process. I guess that's what makes us unique as well, right? Because you're from somewhere different from me, and somewhere different from Anna, and so, we're all from different parts. So, yeah, what we've got from our hometown, our background, makes us unique
Very
as well.
Yeah.
Even if you're from the same city as someone, London, you can have 3 people from the same city but completely different backgrounds, completely different kind of childhoods, and so yeah, I try to add a bit of that in my classes as well.
Okay.
Especially as maybe Newcastle's not one of the more known. I mean, it's known, but it's not one. I'm not from London or Manchester, which students tend to know a lot about. So I do, add a bit every now and again in my classes and talk about maybe my childhood or my background,
And this is something people definitely remember.
Yeah.
Because we used to have Nick, the Australian teacher, maybe you met him. He would explain every time about Australia, and students were really engaged in his classes, because apart from the curriculum, he would bring that extra knowledge.
Yeah, I've had students go to Newcastle since my classes, they've been going to Edinburgh for say a week, and I'm like, oh, well, if you just jump on the train, you can be in Newcastle in just over an hour, and they've gone for like a day trip, and I just think that adding that, Australia, wherever it's from, we've all got our little thing that we can add. So I think Omar has got a good point there
absolutely.
as well. There's a comment for you, Gareth. Specifically you from Dominic. So he says, your point about us all being unique and the need to embrace it is spot on. So let's celebrate our differences and use them to our advantage. There you go, mate.
That's beautiful.
You can get it tattooed on you.
Okay, so we were talking also about brand identity and co-branding and how that links with your uniqueness as well. And Graeme was explaining before the difference between I am an obscenity and I am obscenity, and I want to understand it better.
If I'm an obscenity, then it means that I get the feeling that I work for a company, and I don't like that. I'm great, I'm freelance, and I want all the pleasures of that. But the I am obscenity is like, well, it's me, not the other way around. So I get to represent a brand, and it's how I represent it is how people see it, and I've got a group of awesome teachers that I work with. So if someone sees Rob teaching a class with his obscenity, and they can't get a class with Rob, but then they can see me and get a class with me, then they know I'm as good as Rob. They know I'm as good as Gareth, I'm as good as Anna. Well, almost as good as you guys. But you get that level of understanding, and I think it changes your mentality, and you just got this kind of, I don't know, a mark of level. I'm as good as these guys. I treat the system completely separately. I'm obscenity is my brand, and then everything else is a system I use. It's a syllabus.
It's true.
And you also trust the teacher who is going to substitute you, for example, for any reason, right? When I went on holiday, I was super sure the person who would go to my client would be as good as I am, or maybe even better, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I think the feeling of being a part of a community, right? So you're not alone. So you're not the only one who share the same beliefs, right? There are so many people here, right? So it's branding a personal brand within Obscenity brand, I think.
Okay, so before this talk, we had a questionnaire, and we asked the teachers to fill it, but to fill it from the point of view of a learner. And actually, the conclusions were very interesting. I'll try to summarize a little bit. So the first thing that I understood from this is that what we usually look for in a teacher is not how we pitch ourselves. I'll give an example. For instance, most of the people put in the first place the fact that the teachers have to be very well prepared. But when we talk about our selling points, we don't put that in the first place. Why do you think is that? Why do we forget about that? We want our teacher to be well prepared, but when we have to pitch ourselves, we don't say, I'm always well prepared.
I think it's something that is a we take it as a given, right? The teacher cannot go to the class if the teacher is not prepared.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we charge higher price than somebody else, for example, because we believe in that. That is, I think, the point of the first trial class. When we go for the first trial class, the student, no matter we know the student or not before, right? But the student understands, right? Yeah, this teacher is well prepared, really.
Okay. Other things. So things that pretty much you all agree about is what you take for granted. So you all take for granted that your teacher has to have a complete command of the language and knowledge of grammar, you say, or most of you point out. A teaching certificate, then personal presentation. So to most of you that is important. Recommendations, that was actually Anna your idea, like to recommendations. And the teacher has to like people, be patient, have empathy and care about results. But this is what we take for granted. So that's not a decisive factor. Okay, so most teachers stress the impeccable preparation personal traits appear to be much less important than what I thought. So no one mentions patience and stuff like that. That's not the key factor. And it's important it's very interesting how homework has changed. The idea of homework has changed. So for most of you, homework is understood as a leisure activity. So for you relate homework to a YouTube video, for instance, or like reading something engaging. Not so much gap fill activities and doing grammar. That was quite revealing. So, I noticed that again, most of you are already aware that the students can interact with the app as well. So there is content in the app that you would recommend students to do. Some teachers stressing the fact that it's a good idea to start with a recap and to recap in their free time, for instance. Interesting messages about that can sound over-promising. So anything that sounds mastering a language for instance, in 3 months, in 6 months, is kind of...
You hear them all the time, but we're laughing because you hear that exact... I was going to say something, but yeah. We all know what I meant. But you hear it all the time.
Yeah.
False promises, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think sometimes
you don't have to do
can
anything.
say things like...
Sorry.
Sometimes, for example, in my experience, I can tell the person, and it will totally true, that you will start speaking after the first class, right? But you have to mention what kind of language you're going to use, and you're going to speak in a simple way after one class. Well, you'll be able to say, hello, my name is, I am from, right? So that is the things that we can promise, right? Because it's probably one of the things that are the essence of our teaching, right? Because we teach people how to speak, but promise is like, you will learn language in 3 months because somebody I had learned in 3 months to be the relevant one. And I would never promise this.
But you can promise them some functions, right? You can sort of say to them, okay, in the next month, you're going to be able to do this, and you're going to be able to survive in this situation. Then next month, you should be able to survive in this situation. You can't. That's the promises I can make. I can't say you're going to learn a language, but I can make you communicable. I don't know if that's the right word. In this area, and you can survive. And whether that's going into a bar and asking a girl for a drink, or if it's trying to join a football team in English, whatever it is, I can give you that skill, and you can promise that. But you're going to learn the language in 6 months? No, go with someone else.
Not really.
Yeah.
What kind of language, right? You should mention.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing is that too much reassurance of a teacher being the best and the student achieving all goals, no matter what, sounds also a little bit fake. So
yeah.
And then there is Paul Bryant, who said that apparently, he has to compete with people that says, I'm charging €7 per hour.
Yep,
There's
right.
a lot of
Yeah.
it. So someone that offers something very cheap is untrustworthy.
Well, there's a reason. €7 an hour.
Yeah, the Stella Artois advert, reassuringly expensive.
Yes.
You pay for quality, Sorry, Anna.
sometimes when people say, I met people who chose me just because my price was higher than the others one, because they believe that the higher price is better quality, right? But it's not the majority of people. But I think that we cannot compete with them. I mean, we cannot compete in terms of price. We will be always worse in terms of price because they are cheaper, right? But what we can explain, we don't have to justify our price, but we should ensure that our quality is the best one. Our quality is the one that you could trust, right? I would never go for a teacher who's charging 6 per hour, no matter how desperate I am.
I think that's what's hard. You can't fight by saying I'm the best and by saying I'm this, that, and because it's so generic. That I think that the language that you were talking, Anna, about changing it from I to you will do this, you will do this, because you can't teach someone who's not doing. You get a student who just comes for an hour a week. I'm not that good a teacher. I can't teach. I need you to do stuff too. It's about you will change, you will do these things. I think they're important in your advert, and how you put yourself across.
Yeah.
Okay, there's another interesting message from Soraya. She says that over-promising to her is that I can improve the language by filling gaps in songs, lyrics, and watching movies with subtitles and the help of a grammar book. So she doesn't believe in that, obviously.
Never have I guess.
All right. So to recap, are there any more questions?
No, I think we're ready for a recap.
Very good.
Perfect. Now, I would like to recap all these things with whenever we have to pitch yourself, whenever we have to create content, just a quote that I came across and I really like it. Basically, it encourages people to go from talking to the action. Do not wait, it says. The time will never be just right. Start where you stand and work with whatever tools you have at your command, and better tools will be found as you go along. So guys, start working on it. Start producing content that reflects who you really are, your uniqueness, and hopefully that will translate into students. Okay, thank you. Thank you all. See you next time. What is the talk for next time?
We're going to be looking at more of the English language. We're going to be looking with a bit of Celtic connection. So I think Rob's going to do the interviewing, and then it'll be me, Cameron from Madrid, Evie. We've got the Irish, Celtic, Scottish connection going on next week.
Amazing.
So we'll show you why our version of English is the best.
Thank you guys. Many thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.